Hamster. So let's get right into that.
下一个对手是 Bbgungun。Bbgungun 因为他也是一名中国的玩家吧，所以对他了解还是挺多的。他的比赛基本上都看过，他应该算是一个全能型的选手吧。这几天我们一直在一起交流，所以算是还比较知根知底吧。现在。
He plays like really strange decks, I think. I would be really surprised if he can beat me.
我觉得虽然我对 B 教练的卡图上有特别大的劣势，胜算不是特别大，但是因为我私下里跟他的关系比较好，我们都叫他 B 教练。就算输给他，我也不会有太多遗憾。我最大的愿望就是通过这个游戏交到很多的朋友。我觉得我已经得到了我想要的东西了。我一直在坚持自己的风格，没有带那些为了提高胜率而强行带一些千篇一律的卡组。我希望能够打出自己的风格。
Maybe Hamster is not the one of the best CN player, but he. Hamster, if you beat me, you can win. Please come.
B 教练，我不要求多的，让我赢一个小分就行了。
Greetings from the commentator's desk and welcome everybody to the second match of the day. Bbgungun up against Hamster. The story of North America's Dinos continues. We'll see if that carries over once more. I'm joined by Brian Kibler, set member from North America. How's it feel? I mean, we have a lot of representatives already through to the top 8.
Yeah, North America last year didn't do quite as well as I would have liked to follow up Firebat's victory in 2014, but definitely a lot of strong representation going into BlizzCon already this year.
That's right. Bbgungun comes into this series really confident. He's banned the Shaman, everything is going according to plan. Hamster, of course, banned the Hunter. Very reasonable considering how slow his decks are, and Hunter can punish that heavily. So rather than just face a deck that has great matchups against everything, take that away, even though Shaman seems to be a problematic. Whoa! Just like when you tell that one guy on set to turn down the vape.
I think Misdor was in play. Just sands everywhere.
We get it, dude! All right, we're going to start off the first game with Warlock versus Druid. I'm going to turn that fog machine down. I was starting to get over to the commentator's desk. Already, this is a matchup that Zoo's been doing pretty well in, and I feel like nothing really has changed much historically from the Zoo versus Druid.
Well, this particular version of the Druid deck that Hamster's playing is the token-oriented version rather than the Malagos version. So it is more capable of generating a powerful proactive start, which means that it is able to put Zoo on the back foot, which is a much better position for it to play from.
All right, so already starting off pretty nicely, having that Flame Whip on turn 1 can convert to a ton of damage if Druid doesn't have the answer. But Hamster does, and Hamster's a pretty reasonable hand. Look at that, he's got the turn 1 Fandral or Violet Teacher with turn 2 plays.
Hamster's hand is about the best you're really looking to have in this kind of situation as a Druid. You really want to accelerate out those early plays to force the Warlock to play defensively and allow you to get an advantage over them by whether it is using Wrath to keep drawing cards with Fandral or to keep generating minions with Violet Teacher. And there's another great draw with that Power of the Wild.
Well, the fact that he has so many options might even be something that paralyzes Hamster. Generally, I do feel like you want to get more board presence, and Violet Teacher does lend itself to that, and Fandral does have a lot of ways you can combine with stuff, like Power of the Wild. But I've seen so many people favor Violet Teachers early on because of the 1/1 tokens are so valuable against a deck like Zoo. So I think there's definitely a case for both here.
Yeah, both of these are certainly very powerful plays in turn 1. He's going to go ahead and play the Violet Teacher. I'm actually not sure which one I like better given the circumstances, considering Fandral plus Power of the Wild represents 2 large minions immediately, whereas Violet Teacher plus Power of the Wild represents 1 bigger minion and 1 small minion. So Fandral would actually have a more immediate impact. And in a lot of cases, what matters the most against Zoo is having the largest possible board presence immediately.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The fact that getting that Fandral out just can get you so far ahead because of how much value you generate. But I think a lot of times Druid can outvalue the Zoo over time anyways. And I think one of the important things is if you're too far behind on board, you can't really turn the tides because there's just too many small things annoying you. And look at that. I mean, Hamster's so board-oriented, he's wrathing instead of choosing Wild Growth or Power of the Wild. And I can definitely get behind this.
This is absolutely the way that Hamster wants to play this matchup. The most important thing is to keep the Zoo deck as much as possible from having a board going into their own turn. That prevents cards like Abusive Sergeant or the single Power Overwhelming Bbgungun has in his deck from being able to have a significant impact.
Alcazar's Imp, Imp Gang Boss, of course, coming down. Very resilient to removal. Except when Hamster has this Power of the Wild, that is a very dominant position. And Bbgungun came into this series really confident because he felt like he was super advantaged. But if he's not winning these advantageous matchups, it's going to be really tough to climb back from.
Yeah, this is one of the matchups that the Warlock typically has the biggest edge in, but this, as we've mentioned, is exactly the kind of draw that Druid needs in order to be able to really compete. When you're forcing the Warlock to, as we see, well, that was pretty good. That was pretty good knife juggle there. Does give a breath of life for Gungun, but Hamster does still have a very powerful hand if he wants to just convert these wild growths into ramp as well as minions. He also could just play the Fandral and use his 2 minions on board to mop everything but the imp up. The big issue here, though, is that Bbgungun has that Doomguard in his hand. So Hamster, if he's considering the possibility of Doomguard, might want to ensure the fact that he gets that imp off the board to prevent Bbgungun from not only generating a strong board presence, but also refilling his hand.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we're talking about the resource battle and how Druid tries to outvalue eventually, but Zoo can also get to the point where they grind you out by playing 2 cards per turn and you're still just drawing 1. And that is a crossroads which Hamster is coming at here. If he plays, Fandral and his opponent does get that Doomguard down, what's going to happen? If his opponent is going to punish him? Even worse, what happens if Doomguard summons a Silverware Golem and you're really far behind on the swing?
Yeah, this is definitely a key decision for Hamster here. He looks to be favoring the Fandral, which is the more sort of consistently powerful play, but it looks like he is actually... I'm actually not sure.
Double growth.
Yeah, this is going to enable an Arcane Giant next turn, but it does not prevent the Doomguard from coming down. If he played the single growth and used his hero power, he would have ended up leaving out the Knife Juggler anyway, so it's kind of a problem from either perspective, but this will enable Bbgungun to take control of the board and refill his hand at the same time. He can use the Doomguard to take out the, well, if he wants to trade it and keep both in play, he can use it to take out the Violet Teacher. He can also just give up his Imp if he wants. His hand has no more discard enablers, and that's what he's going to choose to do. Keep as much health as possible on the Doomguard.
Yeah, I like that as well. Just make it as difficult as possible for Druid to remove it. Ravendog can pick up something nice. Direct removal will be great. Do you want to play Fandral with it, or do you want to play the Giant? Giant's just so much stronger stats-wise, but once again, you come down to the resource problem.
I think that Hamster's in a position where he needs to maximize his immediate board presence, get the Giant down. It immediately contests the Doomguard, which Fandral simply does not do. It also allows him to save Fandral plus Raven Idol for the following turn to enable the ability to deal with whatever it is that Bbgungun is able to play to the board.
All right, well, these Discover options definitely have a merit in their own right. The fact that Voidwalker can help you stall the board, Mortal Coil helps you cycle. Possessed Villager seems like one of the weakest options, but it does synergize well with Direwolf Alpha. One thing to also consider is how he wants to play his hand relative to Soulfire. If he Mortal Coils, for example, he might pick up a card that he actually wants to play, like the second Doomguard, or he might want to discard, like Silverware Golem. These are all the odds that are going through Bbgungun's mind right now as he addresses this situation.
I think he's largely considering the possibility of Mortal Coil or Voidwalker. If there's no removal coming from Hamster, Voidwalker could potentially protect his Doomguard from that Giant and allow him to get additional attacks with it. Whereas the Mortal Coil gives him a little bit more options as he digs a little bit deeper into his deck and kills one of the students.
Yeah, if he wants to play his entire hand out, I wouldn't mind picking the Voidwalker here and then just playing Direwolf Alpha with it.
Yeah, and that is the direction that Bbgungun chooses to take, relying on that Voidwalker. That's going to just hold on to the Soulfire here, though.
Slightly
and a
greedy.
Swipe is potentially a very strong draw from Hamster here. He can choose to swipe off the Voidwalker, which allows him to totally clear off Bbgungun's board.
Yeah, those Violet Teacher tokens really paying off at that moment. So while we were a little bit skeptical, Hamster is able to show us why the value of you to generate that. Alcazar's Imp allows him to synergize with that Soulfire. I think he will definitely Crazy Alchemist not going to do much in this position.
Yeah, the Life Theft first allows him kind of 2 shots at the card he draws. If, for instance, he drew a card that he wanted to play immediately, he could choose to play it, then play the Soulfire. If he found a card that was not high impact in the situation, like the Crazy Alchemist, he's able to cycle through that with the Malchezaar's Imp trigger. Oh!
Wow! Yeah, that is quite the minion. In fact, you got 2 legendaries. That's value.
Hamster actually, he has the Fandral still in play, so Druid of the Claw is actually able to be in both versions if he didn't want it, but he will take the Fire Lord. Pretty powerful, especially considering Zoo these days doesn't have the Forbidden Rituals to reload their board, so Ragnaros, given that Bbgungun is so low in resources, is very powerful at not only potentially finishing the game, but also containing his board presence as well.
Oh man, Bbgungun hits a couple of duds, and that's going to wrap up the first game. Hamster wins an unfavored matchup. Being able to get that Violet Teacher on the board and following up with some more board presence has truly paid off.
Yeah, part of the story that we've seen this weekend in terms of deck performance is the Malagos Druid in particular has underperformed. But this token Druid has actually done quite well, and we saw a big part of the reason for that. Its ability to have these powerful proactive draws, especially against decks like Zoo, allow them to have much more significantly consistent ability to get in the board.
All right, so things already looking good for the Chinese player. We'll see what happens in game number 2 when we return.
The Hearthstone World Championship is...
Why do you enjoy just sitting down and playing some Hearthstone?
因为炉石这个游戏，我觉得它跟其他游戏不太一样，它是一个最适合用来交朋友的游戏。如果这只是在线上打的话，就没有那种面对面打牌的那种乐趣了。所以我觉得打比赛的时候能够，认识很多对手，也可以交到很多朋友。 这是线上的游戏所感觉不到的。我最大的愿望就是通过这个游戏交到很多的朋友。
Have you met a lot of people since you came here?
可能因为语言上有一些障碍，所以没有及时的跟他们来得到太多的交流，但是能够体会到那种朋友的感觉。我感觉已经跟他们已经是朋友了。
What about the other Chinese players?
其他3位选手都是非常名气非常大的选手，这次也非常荣幸能够和他们一起来参加这个杯子课。
Do you think your life would change a lot if you won the World Championship?
会有吧，因为我玩炉石这个游戏最大的原因不是为了胜利，不是为了追求这些名利，最重要的是它其中包含的乐趣，这个对战的过程。但是如果赢不了的话，我也不会特别沮丧，因为我最大的愿望就是 通过这个游戏交到很多的朋友，我觉得我已经得到了我想要的东西了。非常感谢暴雪能够设计出炉石这款游戏，它真的改变了我的生活。
Well, Hamster came to his tournament wanting to make friends, but I think he also made some fans. The fact that he's bringing the Priest and Paladin lineup, which we're edging closer to with this series, makes him pretty much one of the fan favorites, I think, going into the series.
Fan. I'm certainly a Hamster fan. Yeah. Coming here to this level of competition and bringing decks that other people just dismissed outright, and he has made it to this point. He is not only 1 match away, but he's up a game in this match to play in the main stage of BlizzCon.
You're right. 3 games away for going to the round of 8. And I know that both these guys just kind of want to make it to the round of 8, not necessarily seeking the ultimate prize just yet. I know some players are looking forward to that, but for these guys, they just want to survive elimination just for 1 day. So let's go into game number 2. We have Druid up against the Priest. Now, Priest has a lot of struggles, and one of them is currently the combo Druid with Malagos in it, because you can't really withstand the pressure or even withstand the burst.
Well, crucially, Bbgungun as well is actually playing the token version. Bbgungun is playing the token version, which doesn't have that late game burst damage. So Hamster's significant number of area effect removal spells in terms of Holy Nova and Excavate Evil are much more effective. We actually saw Hamster keep his entire hand, and I like this because Thought Steal is one of the best cards for Priest against Druid, because Druid cards are so good, and you just want them. There's so few things that the Druid is asking you to react to in the early turns that you generally have the mana available to play Thought Steal, and pretty much anything you get from their deck is good.
Okay, well, we'll see if Hamster has the ability to answer the board when it comes. Now, another interesting development has happened. Bbgungun chose to Raven Idol to discover a minion over a spell. Any thoughts on that, Kibler?
Well, his hand is pretty heavily oriented toward draw and ramp. He has Wild Growth and 2 copies of Nourish. So in this matchup, it's important that he is able to establish an individual significant threat because Reese is so good at removing so many of them. So I like the idea of going for a minion there. Ooh, speaking of discovering minions, Hamster gets a Sylvanas off of his Museum Curator, and that is one of the best things you can get against Druid, because again, they need to stick a significant threat, and Sylvanas can often answer multiple.
Dude, Sylvanas is the most problematic card for Druid to do.
Absolutely.
In the mid-game. It's such a nightmare. They don't have Keepers of the Grove anymore.
Oh, that is
sure.
That's a nice one for Hamster. Both of those help fill out his curve. He can even ramp with the Mire Keeper and be able to potentially keep up with what Bbgungun is doing.
Yeah.
If he really wants to get greedy, he can play Fandral and then try and use both modes on Mire Keeper.
Yeah, you know what? That is a possibility as well.
But he can ramp into that Sylvanas.
You're right. He wouldn't have to skip a beat off the curve. And you know what? Priest with Wild Growth, maybe that's what it needs in the next expansion.
I would play Wild Growth in Priest decks.
Yeah.
I'd play.
It's much better than Hero Power and emoting.
It is better than the Light Shall Burn You. These days, I do the blessings to you.
Yeah, I was a
the
little
greetings.
confused. Oh, you greet your opponent.
Well, you gotta do the appropriate emote for what the animation is, and Tyrande is giving them the sort of blessing of the moon. So you use greetings, which is blessings to you, and then you heal them. For Anduin, of course, the Light Shall Burn You, heal you. That's the appropriate hero power and emote for turn 2.
Whoa! Well, that is going to change some things, because now he has the ability to combine all these cheap spells, like Innervate, like Coin, and all of a sudden Gadget and Auctioneer is going to cycle through the deck.
Yo, this is enormous. Gadget and Auctioneer is one of the most problematic cards for Priest in general. One of the big reasons that Miracle Rogue
Wow! Oh my goodness, a second Innervate!
Oh, this is an absolutely explosive turn. He's going to be able to Power of the Wild at the end of this if he wants, but he might not want to. He might not want to buff his minions. He may just make a 3-2 because he doesn't want to make Gadget and Auctioneer necessarily vulnerable to Shadow Word deck. And very heads-up play from Bbgungun, recognizing, hey, I have the nightmare of Priests everywhere, a 4-attack minion with an ability, and I'm just going to protect that rather than expose it to Shadow Word death. So we thought that Hamster was having a bit of good fortune with that Discover and Thought steal. Bbgungun one-ups him with the Auctioneer.
That was a phenomenal line of draws there for Bbgungun, and Hamster, while he has some fortune with the Sylvanas, that might be a little slow, given that Bbgungun's able to really start pushing in the draws if he wants to this turn.
Yeah, this is really interesting because Gungun has now, with that Violet Teacher he picked up, the ability to generate just so many minions on the board that he could potentially protect whatever minions he wants from the steal from Sylvanas. And it's just going to go to the face with everything. And
choosing the mulch.
Choosing the mulch. All right, he just wants to give a highest chance possible, just giving up one of these 3-2s and then reevaluate. He's hoping that the Auctioneer stays on his side. It does not. Ooh, this giving Hamster a turn with Auctioneer. We'll just make things fair. You know, we both get one of these turns to draw a bunch of cards. Gungun does not have the ability to remove this yet.
Yeah, I guess one of the awkward things too is Hamster's hand is very full. So, you know, like playing a bunch of spells and trying to continue to draw cards isn't exactly that beneficial.
It's also worth noting that he has one spell he can play. He has Shadow Word Pain. The other cards are deaths in his hand. Arcane Giant gives a death target. One thing that is interesting about the way that Gungun played that turn, he could have chosen not to attack with his minions and then play the mulch first. That would allow him the ability to ensure that he could use a minion plus Living Roots in the worst case scenario where that Auctioneer was taken. Now Hamster's the one who is getting a death target, getting to kind of go off with the Auctioneer. And we're kind of trading massive card draw turns back and forth. Though Gungun, he may have his turn next with those Nourishes.
Yeah, and at this point, both players are just drawing their entire decks. But it feels like the important thing is that the Priest is stabilizing, and Druid's not able to mount significant pressure wave after wave. A lot of times what ends up happening is Druid just forces the Priest to be in awkward situations where Priest has to suboptimally use their removal, and then you can keep pressuring by slowly loading onto the board while pushing in damage every turn.
And I honestly think that Bbgungun could have done that if he navigated the previous turn a little bit differently. If he didn't decide to try and just maximize his damage with his 2 minions, if instead he played the mulch first, he would have guaranteed the ability to at least clear the Auctioneer, so that Hamster didn't have that sort of turnaround of a big card draw turn himself.
Oh, Powered Shield, not exactly the biggest pickup here. I guess maybe since the opponent just played a Drake, you can play one of your stronger minions like Karen onto the board, although your development beyond that's not that strong, so you can make a case also for a couple of smaller minions.
I think the Karen is good because there aren't that many things that Druid can do that stop Karen from at least challenging Azure Drake, because Karen's such a resilient minion. I also like using the hero power rather than, say, powered shielding, particularly considering Hamster has 2 copies of Priest of the Feast in his hand, and those cheap spells are especially good if you do fall behind in the health race at getting you back into the game.
Yeah, really good point. Now, Bbgungun saw one Shadow Word Death. I wonder if he feels like his opponent's drawn enough cards where he doesn't fear removal, because Karen gets eaten up by Ancient of War very easily. Or perhaps Bbgungun starts taking the initiative to load onto the board, but it's likely that your opponent has some AoE. So Violet Teacher is susceptible to the 4 AoE cards that you know your opponent's deck. He's going to start things off with a Raven Idol, see what he's able to grab here. Things like Wisps of the Old Gods really fits into strategy.
Picks up a swipe, which does allow him to take out at least 1/2 of Karen.
Yeah, if he wants that. I mean, one of the problems, too, is that Karen is not going to come back just... Well, sorry, it's not that he's just going to summon a 4/5, but Karen can also come back through Nizal. So if you waste your removal on it, you know, one of those things where your opponent's coming up on 9 mana, it's very soon he might be able to return. You have to ensure that the tempo you gain from it is worth it.
This is a weird turn for Bbgungun because he just walks in his entire board to either Excavated Evil or Holy Nova. Hamster does have the ability to attack into that Violet Teacher and just ensure that he gets the clear with either of his AoE spells. He is just going to go ahead and Excavated Evil to wipe everything off, not choosing to protect his onboard minion, instead deciding to play a 4-drop instead to have a more solid start to his turn when he gets it back next.
Yeah, Priest of the Feast, very annoying for Drew. We've established that 6 health is really difficult to get through. Although Fandral can buff some of these things. Nourish, for example, helps him get 2 mana crystals and 3 cards. Help him fill his hand out.
And the problem with Fandral Nourish here is that Gungun isn't left with enough mana at the end to play enough damage spells to actually remove the Priest of the Feast, but he is going to go ahead and dig. He needs to dig here, frankly. It's not necessarily going to allow him to easily react to what's on board, picking up that Excavated Evil. But he does find another Arcane Giant, and we'll get the Wrath here. If he does find Living Roots, though, I think he's not. There's another Giant.
Yeah,
and
who plays 4 AoEs now, Killer?
It's true. He got 5. He's got the Excavate in his hand.
Yeah, I guess you're right. At this point, it's a little bit comical how much these guys have board removal. Also, Swipe being direct damage isn't trivial either. If Bbgungun can use that, plus his Feral Rages to do some direct damage.
Hamster has the clear if he wants it, though. He has the Wild Pyromancer along with Death plus Powered Shield that can, along with his Priest of the Feast attack, clear off the Fandral and the Arcane Golem here. Yeah,
I don't mind that. I mean, definitely want to prioritize removing the Golem. You don't want to take too much damage, and you do respect it, even though N'Zoth does tend to summon some pretty good minions.
You've actually seen most of the things that you care about for Fandral be gone at this point.
I like it. I like it. Being able to fully clear the board seems like a good idea here. So you get that 1 extra damage from the Pyromancer. This spell, you get 1 more through a Power Word Shield.
He's actually going to give up the Priest of the Feast, choose to protect the Pyromancer.
That's interesting. I guess he wants to play another 4-mana minion behind this.
No, if he Powered Shielded, his Priest of the Feast would still actually die, even with the heal attacking in. So he's going to go ahead and play the second Priest of the Feast. And now, you know, Hamster's in a pretty solid position.
Yeah. But both deaths have been used. Now he has to worry about Entombs if his opponent has it.
Well, and Hamster, we see he has his real Sylvanas in his hand, and he's actually already at the point that he can play N'Zoth. So Gungun is in a little bit of an awkward spot. I actually think that Hamster playing the Priest of the Feast here is not something I necessarily love, simply because Priest of the Feast, if Bbgungun does put him under a significant amount of pressure, does give him the ability to recover quite well. He could have played Fandral, which would essentially be a 1 health fewer minion on the board, and give him the Priest of the Feast remaining in his hand if he did need to heal up again in a later turn.
Yeah, it's true. Although it's not necessarily as burst heavy as a deck, there is burst cards like Ragnaros. But with the Violet Teacher build, you're very much more dependent onto the board here. Bbgungun running out of time, just going to start removing, like he is. Second swipe in hero power, so he's also revealing that his swipe, his Raven AO card was a swipe.
Which is a little bit of a misstep if he was considering the actual order of the cards in his hand. It gives more information, so now Hamster is aware that there's additional possibility of the third swipe coming in.
Man, this is so scary because even if Bbgungun deals with this board, which he can, then Hamster can drop the ultimate I win card in his off.
Yeah, and Bbgungun can potentially deal with this Sylvanas while he has no board, but can't develop anything else himself at the same time. So it will lead directly into the old god coming down and reviving all of those death rattles.
I mean, I definitely don't want to call it early at all, but I feel like Priest is in a really good spot here.
Uproot. Uproot it is. Bbgungun recognizes that he is in some trouble, decides to force the trade here from Hamster rather than play a fully reactive turn.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned, this will, if Hamster wants it, allow him to play N'Zoth and just generate 2 Sylvanases and a Cairn on the board. And Hamster recognizes this is an essentially insurmountable board position. There's actually no Yogg-Saron in Bbgungun's deck, so there is almost nothing he can do. Oh,
whoa!
What? I thought there was no Yogg-Saron in his deck. I'm looking at the wrong one. I apologize. I was looking at Hamster's list.
You are correct.
I am foolish.
I was mistaken as well.
I literally was looking at that list.
We were
There's no
actually looking at
Yogg-Saron.
Hamster's list. There is a Yogg-Saron.
Well, there we go. Just kidding. Yogg-Saron comes down.
He just needs to do a masked spell or a doom or something equivalent to that. That Yogg-Saron can end up saving Bbgungun. I mean, also hypothetically, he just kill it. That's a good start.
Yeah, it has done a lot of work here.
He's weakening the board significantly. Fair Rage gives him some attack. Enter the Coliseum.
Ooh, but that kills the Sylvanas and gives control of the Yogg-Saron to Hamster. So now Hamster's the one casting these cards.
Yeah. So if he draws cards, it's all on him. Silence on the Mastiff.
That is that Mastiff now. Okay,
Wow,
now Yogg
Yogg's is
dies.
dead.
That was actually a pretty powerful.
That was amazing.
It's particularly good for Yogg-Saron that at the beginning of the turn we didn't even think was in Bbgungun's deck. That was huge. No, that absolutely did. That was enormous swing from Bbgungun there with that Yogg-Saron.
And he fought for both sides.
Absolutely.
It was the fight of the old gods, and at the very end of it seemed like Bbgungun survived. Although Hamster's continuing the pressure. It's not over yet. Shifting Shade and Thought Steals can give him a ton of value.
He's even getting a little bit of value from that dog attacking. The wisest dog around with that blessing there picks up an additional card for Hamster. And now Bbgungun, he is able to deal with this board defensively, but he knows that there's still Entombs lurking in Hamster's deck. So playing the individual big minion with Ancient of War, even though the Shadow Word Deaths are gone, is a little bit of an awkward situation for him. Yeah, we'll go with Excavated Evil and clear up the board with that rat. Doesn't want to leave the Hound of the Wood as well.
Yeah, I think clearing the board here is a very safe assumption, but as you can see, there's not many cards left. Bbgungun's almost fatigued. Cards like Nourish is going to be doing nothing more than generating tokens at best. And Hamster can continue to generate late game value. A third Sylvanas! Oh, Bbgungun's not going to be happy to see that.
Dear.
He's just already had a nightmare dealing with 4 Sylvanas to this point, and now he has to deal with the 5th one.
Yeah, this is some nice discovers here for Hamster. The Sylvanas making it so that Bbgungun is forced to use his removal here before deploying any minions. And Hamster, he is out of real threats right now, but is able to take some from Bbgungun to end up giving him tools to win the game.
I don't know. If he just keeps removing Bbgungun's cards one by one, he can't. He just outlasts him. He's so far ahead to fatigue.
Yeah,
Did you say he was out of threats?
Well, he got some from Bbgungun. Got a Ragnaros on loan. Signed him off waivers here.
Yeah, and there's not many threats remaining inside of Bbgungun's deck. He's already gotten his 2 Arcane Giants and 2 Teachers out of the way. So he's stuck with his own Ragnaros and a Wild Growth, we know for sure, and pretty much just one other card.
Well, there is a Ancient of War for Gungun. Gonna go ahead and uproot.
I like it.
Going
Double uproot.
large. I'm not sure I totally like this play because he does know that Hamster has a number of AoEs, and this does leave the big minion vulnerable to the possibility of the Holy Nova plus Excavated Evil. And in a game that's potentially going to go to fatigue, it's important to ensure that you are putting the most pressure possible on your opponent's removal.
Man, this is just really frustrating if you're a Druid player in this position because you just can't do anything, and Priest just waiting for you to leave the game. That's essentially it. Priest just keeps playing keep away, and you're trying to tag, but at this point you just can't do anything. You're powerless.
Yeah, honestly, Hamster knows that there's only Ragnaros and the Azure Drake. Very few threats left in the deck for Bbgungun, and he's just going to be able to entomb that Ragnaros. He has a bunch of AoE that can remove the Azure Drake. It's just not going to be enough. Hamster is absolutely attritioning out Bbgungun's entire deck.
Yeah, and that's another win for the Priest, who comes in here at a 1 in 3 chance of being able to win, or 1 in 3 record. But despite the fact that Hamster lost his Ragnaros, this position is just still insurmountable. Like, any threat that he plays is going to get EOE down. And that's the 2nd win for Hamster this series.
Yeah, and we see that is going to be it. The concession from Bbgungun. Hamster up 2-0 against Coach B.
Yeah, Coach B. In fact, these guys were here until 10 p.m. last night practicing for all their series, and Hamster is now even on the Coach B train, realizing that he's heard so many rumors about Coach Bbgungun helping out a bunch of other people for their tournament wins. Has Coach B gone too far? Has he helped his opponent too much?
Will the student surpass the master?
Exactly. Well, the series is still just getting underway. It's 2-0. Anything can happen. We've seen players win 4 straight in opposition despite the early lead. So we'll find out what happens in game number 3. Coach B needs a second here as we get ready for the next match.
So, tell me who you prepared with. I know you have like a group. It's like your QQ group, right?
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that and how that helps you in preparation.
Yeah, practice with a lot of people like WTYBO and Frozen and New Ability.
I'm pretty sure almost every player that qualified, or a lot of the players that even made it to a championship, when I asked them, hey, who was your main practice partner? Who did you practice with? Who helped you the most? A lot of them would say Bbgungun. How does that make you feel as a player who, watching all these players that you helped make it that far?
People are just too generous. I just help a little bit, I think.
How many people do you think have a lot of Hearthstone packs riding on your victory?
I do know that some Chinese fans have picked me, but I don't really want to know it because that's a lot, tons of pressure.
So if you had to say a message to your fans right now, you would say, don't show me your support.
Like that. It's pretty good.
Bbgungun, the hat has come off, and maybe it's time for him to buckle down and really see if the rubber meets the road. He's all breathing pretty intensely here.
Yeah, we've seen him, you just mentioned in that interview that doesn't want the pressure, and we've seen the pressure kind of get to him on the stage here over the course of the week so far. He has definitely been visibly shaken after some of his games, and looks to be pretty stressed right now.
Yeah, well, anything can happen, man. We've seen people come back from 0-3s before as well, so it's not time to panic just yet. And I mean, there's still that Paladin deck, which I still don't know if I have a lot of faith in it, but at the same time, we've seen him also be able to get really good outcomes with Doomsayers on turn 2. For now, we're going to go to Warrior versus Druid one more time, see whether or not the Druid and the Warrior be able to line up well. And this Gungun's nodding his head. Looks like this is the matchup he wanted.
Yeah, the Cthulhu Warrior deck has been very strong. We've seen a lot of good results from it throughout the week so far. The token version of Druid that Bbgungun is playing, that Hamster's playing as well, is generally stronger against the control warrior decks than the Malagos version, simply because it has more ability to generate threats. The warrior deck can't just line up each of its removal spells with each of your big threats, and isn't as vulnerable to the late game burst like other decks.
All right, going to start things off with Raven Idol. Interesting choices. Wrath, of course, is the most versatile. Wisps of Yokot's not bad, but it is kind of weak to things like Ravaging Ghoul and Brawl. But Wisps of Yokot synergizes a lot with your deck because you're so token-based. Starfire is sometimes not bad just for straight-up removal, too. I know people feel like it's overcosted, but if you get it for free off the Raven Idol, I don't see why not.
Yeah, the Starfire also, the fact that it draws cards in a matchup that can often very much be attrition-oriented, can be relatively valuable. We'll go with Wisp of the Old Gods, the highest impact card in a match that's very much about sticking threats.
Yeah, and I completely understand too, because Wisp of the Old Gods might even be finishing potential. Even though it's very expensive, if you're able to get a lot of Teacher onto the board in the following turns, you're able to give substantial health to the rest of your board. It's going to be really powerful and hard to come back from.
And you're playing a token deck that's very capable of significantly pressuring your opponent's brawls. And if you're able to keep them from using those, or force them to use those AoE removal effects, maybe stick them with just Ravaging Ghouls left, then maybe you're able to play Wisp of the Old Gods and Power of the Wild in the same turn. You can really put the Warrior in a tough spot.
Yeah, unless, of course, they bust out the Revenge, but both these players will try to be playing with and around it. Now, Hamster is the one who can definitely be happy about the hero passing more. Bbgungun is just not really doing much. Even though he has Innervate in his hand, he had nothing really to play. Now with that Violet Teacher, though, does make an interesting point of if he wants to play it onto the board, it makes it very susceptible for removal because his opponent has that weapon. So does this warrant another pass turn for Bbgungun?
It does potentially give Hamster an excellent opportunity to use the weapon plus, say, the Disciple of Cthulhu we see in his hand. Though there aren't any copies of Slam in Hamster's deck, so it's essentially just a Disciple of Cthulhu that really helps enable that War Axe to remove his Violet Teacher. And Bbgungun kind of probably feels the pressure to do something. So he doesn't have much to be doing in his future turns if he doesn't make plays soon.
But if he plays a Teacher, it's so easily removed, not just by the normal removals like Shield Slam, but just the fact that like Disciple of Cthulhu kind of fits really nicely into removal. I like holding on and passing here.
Yeah, he is going to go ahead and do exactly that. Hamster kind of looking like perhaps a hero power pass turn himself. We did see in our last match the pressure that Cthulhu Warrior is able to put on Druid if it does have that early aggression, but this is kind of the opposite. This is the Cthulhu Warrior sitting back and playing the removal game. One of the reasons the deck is so powerful is because it can operate on both axes.
Well, Bbgungun picks up a second Violet Teacher. That might make him feel safer to drop one, so that way he can stagger his threats here.
Yeah, one of the things from Bbgungun's perspective here, too, is that Hamster didn't play anything on turn 4. That's the turn where he would potentially play Cthulhu Chosen or at least Starseeker, some of the proactive cards in his deck, and Hamster did not do that, which would suggest to Bbgungun that Hamster's hand is entirely reactive. He does go ahead and drop the Ancient, which is essentially forcing this Execute. But Hamster does have the Acolyte of Pain that he picked up to give him something to play alongside it as well.
Pain, speak to me.
Yeah, I don't think Bbgungun had high hopes very much for that Ancient of War. He just knows that it's going to be tossed eventually into the fire of removal. And so, ultimately the Violet Teachers have so much more of importance of building up those big boards, so he needs to hold on to them. Those are the most important cards, I think, in his deck. Hamster just has more removal. Disciple of Cthulhu coming down and being able to help build up towards inevitably needs to figure out a way to get to an Emperor Metalor.
Yeah, I think Hamster was debating whether he wanted to use his weapon plus Disciple here, but he does have Justicar Trueheart, which will enable every one of those armor pass turns to be so much more impactful.
Yep,
just going to go with that right now. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Bbgungun just maybe even pull the trigger on Wisps here, force Hamster to have removal. He doesn't have great turns otherwise. He's going to go ahead and play the Azure Drake. It does contest the board. Ooh, that allows him to just take down the Justicar True Heart as well. And Hamster, though, he has Gorehound. This is a really, really powerful spot for Hamster, able to take down this Drake and just maintain on the board with a powerful weapon.
Yeah, being able to use the Gorehound against Druid to live on piercing drones is pretty much going to whittle down a lot of those mid-sized threats. Bbgungun is also pressuring his opponent significantly, though. One of the big problems with Gorehound is if you have to have the life gain behind it. And Hamster has not played a single minion to buff Cthulhu, so Ancient Shield Bearer is not even active.
And Ragnaros here sets Hamster down to just 10 life. There's 2 swipes and a Living Roots in Bbgungun's hand. He actually has lethal damage next turn if Hamster does not gain any armor, and this is not an easy Ragnaros to remove.
Yeah, I mean, he has to use 3 of his pieces to remove, I see. If he can Revenge, tank up Shield Slam, and Disciple of Cthulhu. Very expensive.
That is not an easy removal there, and Revenge is actually a fairly important card for Hamster against the token-based strategy of Bbgungun. So even though he is able to actually kill Ragnaros here, it does still leave him in a spot where he's using an important resource against something he'd rather not.
Certainly. Revenge is one of your key cards in this matchup to make sure that any token-based board that has a lot of buffs to it with Power of the Wild, you were able to use to remove, but you know, desperate times call for desperate measures.
And the fact that he is using Tank Up does mean Hamster is not quite in range of that swipe Living Roots. He is at 14. There is the total possible of 10 burst damage available for Bbgungun this turn.
Yeah, but Bbgungun's really happy to see the revenge come out from his opponent. He just knows that he's forced it out. It's not even baited. It's just forcibly removed from his opponent's hand because he knows that Ragnaros dictates so many resources.
And he can just Violet Teacher swipe face, which ends up taking out 4 armor, removing that Disciple of Cthulhu, and gonna go ahead and Living Roots as well. So he's just throwing all this damage at Hamster, setting him down to just 8 life.
Yep. That does put him within range to potentially deal more damage if his opponent takes the damage from the Violet Teacher, because he's anticipating that Violet Teacher will get swung by with the Gorehound, putting him at 5.
And there's still no additional Cthulhu activated for Hamster. He picks up the 2nd Ancient Shield Bearer, but his Cthulhu is currently an 8/8. Those Shield Bearers will give him no armor.
That's right. Look at his deck list. He only has 1 Beckon Revival as well. He has 2 Cthulhu's Chosen, but outside of those early Cthulhu cards to really build it out, he needed them specifically early games. That way he could gain the armor.
And it looks like we're going to see the lonely, only child Emperor of Eklor.
Basically
so
the rest
sad.
of the world. It's basically us, where we always wondered if we had a twin in our life, but we really don't.
And if Bbgungun wanted to, he could mulch this and Wisps to buff his team, getting 2 3/3s, sending in for 6 damage with that swipe left in his hand. He could also deploy even more minions with the Violet Teacher if he wanted to go ahead and mulch as well and not buff his team. There is just the threat of, with that Wisp of the Old Gods, if there's any significant board left on Bbgungun's turn, they can just immediately represent lethal. He will go ahead and Wild Growth, getting a couple of minions and drawing a card, digging a little bit deeper.
Yes, looking for cards like Power of the Wild, potentially more direct damage.
It's another big tree. Ancient of War is the draw.
Okay. I don't think the mulch here would be a bad idea at all. I guess you are thinking in the back of your mind, what can your opponent really do to punish the fact that you use mulch? But mulch is, if it's not used for this, it's used for Cthulhu. Your opponent playing an 8/8 Cthulhu is not exactly the most intimidating thing either.
Gets a couple of damage in, and every damage here is very important. Hamster very low.
Oh my goodness.
Ravaging Ghoul at the perfect time, though.
I mean, he had Brawl, but at the same time, Ravaging Ghoul makes it pretty efficient cleanup.
Yeah. He is very low in life, going down to just 4, but Ravaging Ghoul plus Tank Up clears off the board, puts him down to 8 life, and that Bladed Cultist off the mulch. Suddenly he's the one on the board, and he's ahead.
Yeah. Not bad position. Not the worst position. It's still definitely kind of bad.
Interestingly, if Bbgungun had taken the Starfire, he would be able to kill Hamster right now.
You're right. If he had the Starfire, he would be able to just deal direct damage.
But he does draw Power of the Wild, which combines very well with this Wisp of the Old Gods. Unfortunately for him, Hamster drew that Ravaging Ghoul and was able to save the Brawl. So Hamster has the answer to this board. Oh, the second Ravaging Ghoul anyway, for good measure.
Well, the second Ravaging Ghoul is not going to be that nearly impactful. I guess Bbgungun's still going to hope that his opponent has one of these 2/2 survives and deal 2 damage. You know, Tank Up can help you get back so high up in love. Looks like it will be the case. 2/2 ends up surviving here. So what's your armor count now? You're going to be at 10 life after this?
Yep, he's going down to 6 up to 10. And Gungun does have the Ancient of War. He can dig a little bit more with Wild Growth as well. See a little bit of nod. Happy about that. Whatever it might be.
That is a card.
It is, in fact, a card.
Yeah, he also has the opportunity. Oh.
Ooh.
That is quite the card.
It was a mystery
3,200 worth of dust.
A mystery card last game, a mystery card this game. Whoa! Yogg right away. Okay.
Makes it unlikely for Yogg to get immediately killed off.
Oh no! Astral Communion, Astral Disaster.
Oh.
He's a rogue now. He lost
this is
his
so
powered
awkward.
shield.
Oh, this is so awkward. Oh no,
Okay.
he's dealing damage to Yogg.
But he drew some cards. He was able to at least get a little bit. Oh, now Yogg's dead. That was not.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, Yogg, particularly since the change where you stop casting spells if Yogg dies. Casting Yogg as sort of a refill card draw mechanism is not reliable, and Bbgungun trying to go for a little bit of gusto there with the Yogg and was seriously punished by that Astral Communion.
He was nodding in approval. Oh man, the Disciple of Cthulhu?
That turns everything on
that's
for
a
Hamster.
disaster. This has gone completely 180. And Repentance doesn't do anything.
Yeah, now Gungun was so close to having lethal damage, but just discarded his big threat. He had an Ancient of War. He could have just played Ancient of War that turn, and instead, he put his faith in Yogg and was not rewarded.
All right, well now, Raven, Idol, and Fandral, I think is Bbgungun's last one. He needs to absolutely maximize value. The kill your opponent plan is completely out the window. Takes a Menagerie Warden super quickly.
Wisps is pretty powerful if you are able to maintain that Fandral on the board, but Fandral's certainly dying. You have no way to remove the 6/6. It's still potentially strong. We've seen a Ravaging Ghoul, we've seen a Brawl. So if Gungun is able to stick the Wisps, frankly, I think that he needs it. He needs something high-powered here to get back into this game because he's lost so much ground over the past turn.
You're absolutely right.
There's something powerful. There's Arcane Giant.
Arcane Giant is really strong if you're able to get to connect a couple times. Hamster doesn't have convenient removal. Would have to use 2 cards.
He has Brand Shield Bearer if he wants it, though. He can go ahead and gain 20 armor.
Yeah, and that lets him use Gorehowl a lot.
He was at 4.
Yeah, and
4
now
life.
he's going to go back up to 40.
The
Four
swings, man.
going on 40. Coming out in
swings.
theaters this fall. Featuring Cthulhu.
God. It looks like Hamster's actually just mousing over the Cthulhu here now. He's going to go ahead and preserve his life. Cthulhu is sheltering him quite well, in fact.
Someone needs to do a Photoshop, the Ancient Shield Bearer over, and Garrosh over Jennifer Gardner's face in that movie poster. Bbgungun at this point just is so desperate to make sure he just doesn't actually get counter-pushed. One of the big problems is that when Cthulhu gets dropped, Bbgungun's out of removal already. So if Cthulhu just gets dropped and he can't stop the onslaught of board pressure, he's just going to die.
Yeah, this is a particularly awkward spot because the Brand is scary. Because Brand plus Cthulhu is just enormous pressure to just end the game right away. And, all right, it will be a board fill for Bbgungun, but this gives Hamster the opportunity to just use his Damage Shield Bearer to kill that Giant if he wishes.
Yeah.
The execute as well, he could potentially execute the Damage Giant, trade into the 5/5. So this is really slipping away from Gungun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think he can win from this position. There's not many threats left. His VOD teacher's gone. The fact that he tried to use Ragnar's to pressure is gone. His Ancient Ward, one of his Ancient Wards is gone. He's already used his Fandral as well to gain immense value. I think that this game is pretty much over. And when you're getting Gorehound to the face
That's
You
not a good
know
sign.
that's
that
a
is
really
not
bad
a
sign.
good sign whatsoever. Nourish, last-ditch hope from Bbgungun here.
And a couple mystery stuff, but Nourish is not going to be that helpful. Arcane Giant could help swing, but he has to also make sure not to die.
Yeah, look at the board. He is just behind a 10-10 Cthulhu here. He's going to innovate into a Moonblade Portal. That's a pretty good mystery card.
Yeah, need that to be impactful,
Get
though.
him.
A taunt or a charge.
He's out of range on board, but he is dead
Oh,
to the
man.
Fiery War Axe in Hamster's hand, which he knows is coming. That Gorehowl swing meant the end for Bbgungun's game here. And Hamster is going to take a 3-0 lead.
Yeah, Bbgungun said he felt really confident. His words were, I'd be very surprised if I lost to Hamster. If he beats me, he's going to win BlizzCon.
We're going to be ready to see a shocked Bbgungun face pretty soon.
You could be looking at the BlizzCon champion.
Oh,
Yeah, you'll allow it. I mean, the
The
Priest and
Priest,
Paladin's
yeah.
working. Although we'll see what the Paladin deck has in store. 3-0 is the score. One game away for Hamster to be the second player from China to go to the top 8. I'm feeling like it's their year, man. We'll see what happens. Can Bbgungun make the comeback, or will the 4-0 sweep be a reality? The answer is right after this.
The Hearth.
How do you think the competitive Hearthstone scene in China ranks against the other regions in the world?
国服玩家一个是人数上比其他国家的玩家多一些，可能是多2-3倍的样子。另外一个就是国服玩家，他们的套牌都比较的普遍，就是那种可能每个人可能就是他们都喜欢玩一些主流的套牌。
Are you trying to show the world that China has more creativity by bringing decks that nobody else would bring?
因为这是世界上最大的比赛，所以我觉得它需要最好的是9个职业都有人带，这样比较好。所以我如果没人带的话，就让我来带吧。我希望能够改变一下大家对炉石这个游戏的看法。他们的套牌都比较的普遍，我希望大家能够有自己的想法。这次炉石这个游戏最大的乐趣就是自己组牌。可能我平时在生活中比较普通，所以我希望能够在游戏里面展现一下自己。我觉得炉石这个游戏能够给我一个很大的舞台。
An admirable goal for sure, as Hamster is up 3-0. He wants to prove to the world you can be creative with Hearthstone decks and still be successful. And you know what? I mean, he's one game away from doing that. Because if you get to the top 8, it doesn't matter if you're second seed or first seed, it just becomes single elimination from there. And he's done just as well as the rest of the field if he's able to win this last game.
And it's just the Paladin remaining that he needs to win with. This is the very greedy Paladin deck. This is the Paladin deck that is not only anything can happen Paladin, it is N'Zoth Paladin.
Yeah.
And that said, it's still Control Paladin. And Control Paladin still has a lot of tools that can be excellent against many of the decks that Bbgungun has removed.
Certainly. The lights have changed, and now the stage is set. Bbgungun is one game away from elimination. He's going to have to start the comeback train now. What's it going to be? One more time, the Druid has a lot of faith that this deck should be able to at least start the comeback train, although it's going to be tough.
And this is another game in this match where the Malagos Druid deck likely would be superior in Gungun's spot. The token-based Druid deck is excellent at playing against decks that care about the board, but much worse at playing against decks that are good at defending the board and poor against burst damage. The Paladin deck that Hamster's playing, we see it has Doomsayer, it has Pyromancer, it has Quality, Consecration, it has all these ways to clear off those tokens, but it's much weaker against the possibility of the Malagos burst damage because it doesn't end the game quickly.
It's true. It ends the board through board dominance. Paladin's actually pretty decent at clearing the board, especially if they get some initiative like this. Double Boy Leader is actually a very strong opening.
Yeah.
If you play Fandral into this, oh no.
And Gungun here hoping that he's able to get the free kill, but it will be the Murloc getting free lunch here, feasting on Fandral Staghelm and leaving Gungun in a hole already.
Yeah, this is already really bad, and Bbgungun felt like he was okay to challenge it, but when your opponent coins it out,
especially in a deck with so many high-cost cards.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you want the coin for if you're in Hamster's shoes, that coining out a War Leader essentially says, I have War Leader.
Yeah, or a way to follow this up with another Murloc, perhaps. You know, it's one of those things where Bbgungun had to be a little bit more careful, but when you're behind, sometimes you have to also make risky plays, and that could be going through his mind as well.
Though now that the second War Leader is dead, we do see that Hamster's hand, it is full of those expensive cards that he'd love to have the coin to be able to play ahead of curve. Bbgungun has ramped up quite a bit, and he'll be playing powerful cards already, while Hamster has just his Murloc.
All right, well, Raven Idol could get something pretty useful to bail him out. Mulch isn't too bad. He chooses Moogle Portal just for the raw value.
I think that Bbgungun is thinking that what he needs to do is put pressure on Hamster, because Hamster's deck is so powerful if the game goes long that he really wants to ensure that he is able to threaten him now. And Moonglade Portal is able to do exactly that by generating a minion, whereas the Mulch purely reactive.
Okay, this is a relatively useless Doomsayer. Hamster's just using it to stall on the board. Doesn't really expect too much out of it. How does Bbgungun choose to respond here? He picks up Wrath, so he can either cycle that or use it for removal.
I think that if I were in Bbgungun's shoes, I might be looking to cycle the Wrath, just because there aren't a lot of small minions in Hamster's deck that you're looking to kill, and you really do want to dig to your threats. That said, you don't necessarily want to commit too much to the board early on.
Whoa! That works great in a token deck.
All right, yeah, the token deck with Power of the Wild gets Illidan off of the Moonglade Portal. This is going to enable an absolute huge turn for Bbgungun if he's able to keep them in play. If this board sticks, that Power of the Wild is just so much damage.
When I was testing with Firebat for Seed Story Cup 3 earlier this year, or Seed Story Cup 5 earlier this year, as the Wild Pyromancer is going to clear this entire board with equality, to be expected, obviously, we actually tested a lot of this, and you know, Firebat was doing some really cool stuff, but we ultimately concluded it was a little too slow for the Token Druid deck, because even though you can turn your last stuff, the 6 mana cost to Illidan was just a little bit too much for the swing boards that you really want. And
Gungun now, he has 10 mana, so Nourish obviously going to pick him up some extra cards. Did not choose to play the Violet Teacher first, doesn't want to get it immediately killed by the minion on the board plus the True Silver Champion. And now Hamster, we're seeing just how greedy that deck is. 2 10-cost cards, 2 8-cost cards in his hand. He finds a perfect thing to fill his curve, though.
Yeah, 26 worth of, or 36 mana worth of cards.
Enter the Coliseum is an absolutely incredible card against the Token Druid deck. If he's able to establish a single large minion, Enter the Coliseum can clear off everything on Gungun's board and leave him with that big threat.
I actually don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal if Hamster, I mean, if Bbgungun can't even answer like Tyrion, Ragnaros, and the Zoth combinations. It's just going to be so many big bombs. At one point, you're just going to run out of removal because there's so much high value and stuff. Yeah,
well, I'm not saying that the game that's going to necessarily be a card Hamster needs to win, but it's definitely a card that if he does fall behind, will definitely help him catch back up. So
certainly.
All right, well, we do see a board-filling turn from Gungun here. Going to go ahead and try and pressure Hamster as much as he can now that he has seen that Pyromancer quality already.
Yeah, but, you know, this is one of those board states where if Bbgungun chooses to buff everything, I think Enter the Coliseum definitely has its use here in this position. Just basically remove every single token, and you're able to kill off the Violet Teacher that's isolated. Well,
the Arcane Giant, though, is a pretty big champion to send into the Coliseum.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
And there is the Yogs. Oh, it is going to be just an enormous commitment from Gungun. He's going to get the bad news.
Yeah.
There's going to be a fight in the Coliseum next turn. Such a huge commitment from Gungun. And then such a back-breaking answer from Hamster here, eliminating everything but that Giant. And you know, Hamster, he has so much life left, and he has so many huge minions in his hand that he is just not that scared of that 9/9. He can play the Doomsayer this turn if he wants to force Gungun to attack into it, if that's what he decides to do.
Sure.
But even then, you know, he has the Tyrion follow-up, the Ragnaros follow-up, the N'Zoth follow-up.
Yeah, it's just heal, essentially, for this Doomsayer. Stalling for while you can get Tyrion out onto the board.
And now Hamster can choose to attack with his weapon this turn because he's playing to set up Tyrion. He wants to get the uses of the charge of this weapon before Tyrion comes down and creates the Ashburn.
All right, well, Swipe's not going to be that useful in this position, although it does help. He has to just pretty much play defense and hope that this 9-9 can get a lot of work done. He needs to build up board. Like right now, his pressure is still a 9-9, but he knows that his opponent can still do a lot worse. What makes it really bad too is Paladin excels a lot in single target removal. If it wasn't the Tyrion, it could also be an Elder Peacekeeper and just completely negate the Giant's attack. And then you have a glorified 1-1 killer.
And Bbgungun, he's got a 9-9, but Hamster's at 30 with Tyrion in play.
Yeah.
He has the mulch, so he can answer the Tyrion immediately and get the 9-point hit in, but Hamster does have N'Zoth to follow up. He gets that Ashbringer. Swampu's not going to be a big deal in the matchup, and there's even just a bunch of healing in Hamster's hand. He has Light Lord, he has Forbidden Healing, so many tools to just keep Bbgungun out from being able to get back into this game.
The one wild card, of course, is Yogg-Saron.
It is.
You know, if Hamster chooses to summon back Tyrion, Yogg-Saron can do some pretty wacky things here, to say the least. And, you know, is it time to play the Yogg? Or do you want to just, once again, try to buy some time and maybe build up even more spells for the Yogg-Saron?
So Gungun's going to be attacking into the Tyrion and just sending his minions in. There is an Ancient of War that does help him play a little bit of defense.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it's not exactly easy to deal with this board yet without any kind of removal.
There is Forbidden Healing for Hamster. He can go ahead and take out the Ancient with his weapon and the N'Zoth, and if he wants, just heal himself all the way back up to 30.
Yeah, awkward because the Ragnaros Light Lord doesn't guarantee the heal, although I guess you could combine both. What you could end up doing, well, I guess just lay on hands is his choice. He just feels like he needs to draw cards. But, you know, what you could end up doing is just trying to draw cards and find the removal there.
Yeah, the attack with the N'Zoth, he's actually just not going to attack, perhaps?
Oh, he's just going to wait.
Yeah, he's just going to heal himself with the Ragnaros. Leave the Ancient up.
That's a risk I'm not sure if I'm willing to make here. The opponent's going to have 14 health and go to 24. Oh, man. He has no choice. I mean, he's committed to the board.
Once he's played these, this is what his play has to be. He can't attack with that N'Zoth.
Now Yogg is definitely a viable play in this position.
Yeah, Gungun can send quite a bit of damage to the face against Hamster here. And possibly put his faith in the God of Death. But it will be the Teacher into Wrath.
Okay.
Taking another minion. I imagine he's cycling. Ooh, Power of the Wild.
Yeah, this is definitely still Bbgungun's opportunity to come back into this game.
This game is looking very bad for him, but now that's a pretty big swing here. Suddenly, he's able to push a lot of damage and really put Hamster to the test.
Yeah, but at the same time, Bbgungun's at 12 life, so
it's true.
You know, it's not exactly the most amount of health. Plus, Ragnar's Light Lord stays on the board if you don't trade into it. And that 10 damage means that 8 might be healed or more. Plus the fact that Ragnar's could just hit you in the face and kill you if he has an equality or some way to get past the 6-11.
There's a Peacekeeper, so Hamster has found a little bit of a way to slow this down. Gonna go ahead and dig again with Lay on Hands. I think he's trying to find his second equality so he can just clear the board. Because if Hamster is able to get everything off this board, Gungun's out of resources, but it does not come. He does not find the equality he's looking for this deep in his deck.
But he's got one board to stick. This is what Bbgungun's been looking for the past 3 games.
Yeah.
He's been trying to get something to stick, and Priest has not been able, or Priest was able to defend against it. The Warrior is able to brawl, and at this point, Bbgungun is going to just need to maximize whatever he has. He has 12 damage existing on board. And he has one Yogg-Saron opportunity this turn. He can also pass and see what happens the following turn. It's not hopeless just yet. Usually Yogg-Saron's played in a situation where you absolutely have no other options.
I mean, Gungun has a lot of damage. He has 14 he can send in this turn. He's got to be afraid of getting his board cleared, though. So if in that case, you actually kind of want to just push for as much damage as you can. He may be concerned about the possibility of what damage adds up to with Consecration to actually allow Hamster to trade it into his board. Because with so many cards that Hamster has drawn, he's got to have found something. He's like, okay, there's definitely a Peacekeeper in here somewhere. I'm not going to be able to rely on a single big threat.
He'd be dead to an Equality Consecration. It'd be 13 damage, or 12 if he clears us off. It's the same difference.
Looking to stay alive. So he wants to ensure that he can do some damage. So kind of taking a little from column A, a little from column B. Peacekeeper is the
second one. So he has the opportunity to climb back on the board by just using his Peacekeepers to defuse the situation. And that forces the Druid to once again build up some kind of board here. And then he could use his Yogg-Saron to try to climb back. Or perhaps Gungun's able to pick up some card draw in this position.
Gungun's under pressure of lethal damage again. The 2 3/3s plus the Ashbringer. He's just 10 life, even with his hero power. Yeah, I believe it is time to put his faith in Yogg-Saron.
All
Will
right.
it be enough?
He needs to look for some way to clear the board, maybe gain some health, maybe even draw some cards or kill his opponent.
Naturalize is not good. He's giving more resources to Hamster, putting him even closer to finding those Bluegill Warriors or finding equality.
Okay. Not the worst thing here.
Got some imps.
Filling his hand. All right.
No
Actually
and
doing
heals him.
everything. Nothing really of consequences happening.
Gain some life. He is now out of lethal range. At least
Oh.
vanish. All right, well, Yogg-Saron is back in business.
Yeah, for now. I mean, Hamster also can still play a lot of threats. And it wouldn't even be necessarily that bad to just play the first Anyfin 2 to pressure. I guess because you have the 10 damage on board, it is pretty significant. You can also heal yourself with Ivory Knife if you feel really defensive. And Sylvanas is also insurance maybe against the Yogg-Saron, because if you kill Sylvanas, you steal Yogg-Saron, and you can't really do direct damage spells to you as easily.
Hey, you're in sort of a weird spot, too, because Hamster's fairly deep in his deck. I don't think he's at legitimate risk of getting fatigued just yet, but Yogg-Saron could potentially make that go crazy if he does steal it with Sylvanas.
Yeah, so Sylvanas' defense against Ragnaros and Yogg-Saron, which is pretty good, and I'm starting to like that a lot more. The reason why Anyfin can be really decent is that you summon 10 power on the board, and that's your strongest board from this position.
The biggest problem is that he has no Bluegills, so he'd love to save Anyfin for the guarantee of lethal damage. And if he does get the Bluegills down and his opponent just jogs him away, or not the Bluegills,
That's
the
true.
champions down. Ooh, and there's another Anyfin if he wants it.
Heal for 10.
He's not going to take that. He's going to take the Hammer of Wrath. And yeah, I expect to see just the Hammer of Wrath to the face. Probably the Ashbringer to the face as well. There is equality. So now Hamster has the insurance policy of equality consecration. No matter what board Bbgungun is able to establish, he has the answer.
Completely fair here. Bbgungun knows that the situation means that his opponent's trying to just kill him. But he hasn't seen any Bluegill Warriors, so Anyfin is still not a direct kill. And Bullet for Sorcerer is pretty good. That is definitely above average for stats. 6 mana per slot, and he's able to get some pretty decent board control.
So much healing, so much card draw from Hamster. The Lay on Hands comes out as well.
He's got 2 Lay on Hands,
I have no time
Forbidden
for games.
Healing, and Ragnaros Light Lord. That's just a lot of damage and punishment he can take. He's just playing Sylvanas, which is a little bit scary because you know that your opponent has the ability to play Ragnaros, so that'd be 14 with 1 Living Root's already gone. I guess that's already eliminated the possibility of him just cheesing you. Okay, so he's just healing because he's afraid of any possibility of Yogg killing him, I guess.
Azure Drake for Gungun doesn't really change things much.
You know, the Sense Demons and the small tokens, not actually that bad of a pickup here because of the way it decreases the chance of Sylvanas stealing something significant. And then, of course, the whole point is to bait your opponent into using removal. And he's able to kill off one of those imps. So maybe working out. I mean, this game looked over for Bbgungun several turns ago. And now we're brought to this position where maybe he can still mount a comeback. Maybe.
It is not out of the realm of possibility. Hamster really looking for Bluegill Warrior. He finds Pyro.
Where on earth are his Bluegills? They're just nowhere to be found.
So drawing Pyro means that he no longer needs to hold on to this consecration. And he's also just able to push for damage with this True Silver. Gungun under a lot of pressure. He is again facing lethal damage next turn on the board if he doesn't react.
Almost out of cards.
And almost out of cards.
Yeah, he's almost on fatigue. That's the really dangerous point of Yogg-Saron as well, because it might draw you too much into fatigue. Bbgungun's seen 2 consecrations, and I think he's going to wonder about direct damage, but if we look at the deck lists, it doesn't really seem that Paladin has that many more ways to deal direct damage. He's going to go for the Yogg-Saron immediately.
This really is, I think, his last hope. He's trying to establish something that can enable him to... tracking, his last card is gone.
That starts to fatigue if he draws. And that means
and the
Yogg-Saron
only
is
undamaged
dead.
character is Yogg. That is the last of Gungun's deck. Maybe the last of his tournament life. That is it.
That's going to wrap it up, and Hamster is going to win the series 4-0. And he is our second player to go to the round of 8.
Yeah, that is just an incredibly impressive performance from a player who came here without real expectations. He just wanted to come here, showcase his creativity, meet some people, have some fun, make some friends. Now he's moving on to the main stage of the World Championship.
He won 4-0 with a lot of that is Priest and Paladin. Brian, all the reports, all the snapshots, all the data tells me that he is silly to bring it. But, you know, data be damned. Hamster is going to the round of 8, be the second player representing China and the second player of today. He is waiting with Sato for a few words on his victory.
Thank you, Dan. I am standing by with Hamster. Hamster, first off, congratulations. You said that you wanted to perhaps change some minds and inspire people by bringing Priest and Paladin to this tournament. Do you feel like you've maybe done that now?
你说你带牧师跟圣骑士是为了改变所有人的想法，那你觉得你现在已经成功了吗？
我觉得可能成功了一半吧，因为这个胜利可能是有很大的，是因为我非常幸运才胜利的吧，但是我觉得这个胜利还是有意义的。
I think I'm about halfway there. I think it's definitely fortunate that I won, but and it's very meaningful that I did accomplish this win.
Okay, so I think we maybe already got the answer to this question. You might not want to give too much away, but now you're going into BlizzCon properly. You do have the opportunity to make some changes to your decks. Are we going to see that at all, or are you going to stick with the same thing?
那你现在要去嘉年华，你会对你的牌组有任何改变吗？
这个因为下一轮的对手已经出来了，下一轮对手是我自己的队友杰森州。我本来是准备做一些改变，但是如果对手是他的话，我也许不会做改变，因为我的牌组对他非常有利。
So my next opponent, since he's already decided, is Jason Zhao. And I originally thought I was going to change my decks around, but now that I know I'm facing him, I might not even change it, because I think all my decks are advantageous towards him.
Awesome. Still leaving it open, but there you go. Priest and Paladin fans, you might still see some more action at BlizzCon, but we have now 6 players decided for the BlizzCon spots.